North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. We bring you the news. We report it honestly and truthfully. We analyze the news for fact. We also analyze the news for bias. We point out both fact and bias. We also make commentary. That is not the news. That is simply what I think about the news. You have your thoughts about the news. I have mine. Let's get together and discuss them. That's debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. That's why the Wells Report is something that you should be paying attention to every single day. We show up Monday through Friday from 2 until 5 in the Central Time Zone. Today is a new tradition. We started it about a month ago. It is Fishing Shirt Friday. I love these things. Fishing shirts are great. I gotta tell you, I don't look good in these shirts. These shirts don't do me any favors. They just don't. They don't do me any favors. They're kind of boxy and they're kind of weird, but they are so comfortable. And let me tell you something. During the summer, these fishing shirts saved my life. It's absolutely true. I was basically more cool and more comfortable than most people because these shirts are fantastic. And I don't buy the really expensive ones. I don't buy. Oh, wait, this is a really expensive one. I was just going to say I buy Magellan ones. This is a Columbia. I didn't even realize it. Oh. What do you know? I must have gotten it on sale. As a matter of fact, I did. I remember. I did get it on sale. I went to Sports Academy and got it for like 50% off. That's why I have it. I don't like Magellan. They're fine. They're just perfect. And boy, are these things comfortable. Fishing Shirt Friday. So what are they fishing for in the Biden administration regarding these immigrants being moved all over the country? More about that coming up in just a couple of seconds. Is this a big mess for the Democrat Party? You bet it is. How do we know it's a big mess? Well, as you know, we're 50 or so days away from the 2022 midterm elections. And there are an awful lot of Democrats hoping to reelect themselves or get reelected in that election. And guess what they're not talking about? Yeah. They're not talking about the border. They're not talking about inflation. They're not talking about any of the things that are going on right now in this country that, depending on who you talk to, are really important to Americans. When it comes to immigration, listen to this. This from Fox News. Vulnerable Democrats seeking re-election in the Senate and the House of Representatives will simply not say if they think the border is secure. They also won't say whether they'd welcome illegal immigrants into their states after more than 2 million illegal migrants came through the southern border this fiscal year. Now, you have to keep something in mind here. This isn't necessarily inaccurate reporting. But what it does is it sort of misses a very important point. 2 million illegal migrants have come to this nation and have been interacted with. They've been interdicted. In other words, these are the people that we got. Another 500,000 got around all the stopgaps and measures and the security measures at the border. Because the border itself is porous. Because we didn't finish the fence we needed to finish. Because we didn't do the things that are required to have a secure border. And that all stopped when President Biden became the president of the United States. And so what's happening is this is having a frank effect on the Democrat Party. Fox News reached out to 26 elected Democrats who are running in tight re-election campaigns, asked them if they too believe the border was secure and how they would go about illegal immigrants entering their states as border policies remain a top midterm issue. Only one responded. Vice President Kamala Harris, who was put in charge of handling the border crisis and has done nothing. She spent 3 days in El Paso. Sorry, that's not going to do it. She recently told NBC News the border is secure, but we also have a broken immigration system, in particular over the last 4 years before we came in, and it needs to be fixed. You've been in power for 2 years. How come you haven't fixed it? Why is that? Why haven't you fixed the border? That complaint falls completely into the bin of irrelevance, which is getting more full every day. VP Harris's comments were quickly questioned by NBC News anchor Chuck Todd. We're going to have 2 million people cross the border for the first time ever. You're confident this border's secure? Harris doubled down. We have a secure border. That it is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration. Okay. Well, finish the fence. Oh, but that's right. The president said not one more foot of fence will be built. Well, except for the fence in Arizona because, well, Mark Kelly needs to be reelected in Arizona and we got to do something to help him. That's the only reason. The Biden administration needs to finish the fence. And they have to reevaluate a whole bunch of policies that they put in place. And if they do not, they're going to get run over. Seriously. They've gotten to the point now where they're going to have to do something else. Or they're literally going to get run over. And oh, by the way, they should. There's that dang partisan Wells again. Crapping on the Democrat Party again. No. I'd be saying the same thing about the Republican Party. And you know what? I have. I absolutely have. Just give me some time. I'll get to the Republicans in this in just a couple of minutes. Because if the Democrats lose their butts, which I'm pretty sure they're going to, who's going to be in charge? Yeah. And what does that mean? You stay right there. We'll talk it over. My message is the same. The border is not secure. We need to be doing more to dissuade migrants from coming to the United States. Who is that? That's the only Democrat. I hit that button. Who is that? That's the only Democrat that actually responded to Fox News inquiry about how they felt about the border. Henry Cuellar says this, and by the way, he's a Texas Democrat. My message remains the same. The border is not secure. We need to be doing more to dissuade migrants from coming to the United States. This, by the way, is why Henry Cuellar keeps getting elected in Texas. Deep red Texas. Cuellar did not voice support for the tactic of some governors busing migrants to liberal cities. I don't necessarily agree with the politics of using migrants as pawns, but we need to address the influx. Our whole country is now feeling the effects of open borders. Yesterday morning, 2 buses full of migrants from Eagle Pass, Texas, were dropped off near the Naval Observatory residence of Vice President Kamala Harris. Some of the individuals on the buses told Fox News they believe the border is in fact open. Yeah, go right to the people that have just crossed it. Oh yeah, it was wide open. What are you talking about? Yeah, why would I be here if it wasn't open? In recent months, Governor Greg Abbott has been sending buses full of illegal migrants to Washington, D.C., Chicago, New York City, Martha's Vineyard, to relay a message to the Biden administration on their unhinged border policies that are directly affecting his state. Okay, so the use of the word unhinged, that adjective, unhinged border policies, that's bias. Yeah, we point out bias on this broadcast, and that, by the way, is Fox News doing that, just so you know. Okay? So there's that. Well, what is going on regarding that? Well, the people in Martha's Vineyard, they decided that they had a humanitarian crisis. They had 50 migrants. My God, they came from another country entirely. Did you see the way they were dressed? Oh, my. One was wearing a white jacket after Labor Day. What in the hell is that? I couldn't help it. I just couldn't help it. Anyway, but by the way, there's more rich irony having to do with these people showing up in Martha's Vineyard. I've got that for you coming up in just a couple of seconds. So Martha's Vineyard declared a humanitarian crisis based on the illegal immigrants, 50, sent to them by Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. DeSantis' office revealed to Fox News Digital that the governor was responsible for sending 2 planes of illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard in response to the Biden administration's failure to secure the southern border. I'm sorry, this is just amusing. This is just amusing to see. Wait till you hear all the hypocrisy being thrown around. You will not believe it. You simply will not believe it. Anyway, Massachusetts Democrats, including representatives from Martha's Vineyard, condemned the Florida governor for using illegal immigrants as political pawns, suggesting the city is struggling to take care of the migrants. Well, actually, they're not. And I'll explain why coming up in just a couple of minutes. Somebody has to say this, so I'm going to say this. This is a bipartisan issue, not what's going on with Martha's Vineyard and so on and so forth. The use of immigrants as pawns. That's a bipartisan issue. The use of immigrants as pawns started as soon as we decided that what we were going to do was re-demography various parts of the United States. By the way, in case you want to know, Latinos now outnumber whites in Texas. That just came out today. So the efforts to re-demography various places in the United States is why the borders are open. I've made this abundantly plain. These people are not here to do work Americans won't do. They are here to cast votes Americans won't cast. That's why they're here. Now, if that's not using immigrants as pawns, what is it? So all these people saying, my God, he's sending these people to Martha's Vineyard. Good heavens to Betsy. What will the HOA say about that? Oh, my God. You know, not only that, but these people have been sent to Martha's Vineyard. They haven't mowed a single lawn. This is where we stand. This is the state of play in the United States as we speak. It is horrific. The hypocrisy. And I've been talking about hypocrisy in politics for a very, very long time. There cannot be anything more destructive to the American people than the obvious being gaslit by a particular band of politicians that is sustained by a corrupt mainstream media. That's how you lose the country. That's how it's done. So when you hear somebody talking about these people are being used as pawns, these darn Republicans are just using these people as pawns. Yeah, okay. Pot, meat kettle. You know, this is what we deal with every single day. Martha's Vineyard declares a public emergency because of 50 migrants. We'll have 50 migrants in about 5 seconds here in Texas. We get 9,000, 10,000, 12,000 a day. What does that work out to every hour? All you got to do is wait 5 seconds. You got another 10,000 migrants. That's the way it works. It's absolutely ridiculous. You're listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. What are your thoughts on all of this? Please share them on the chat room or on the phone. More about that in a moment. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks for joining us today. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. Let me give you that just a little slower. 817-379-2172. Operator is standing by. Also, by the way, you can join us on our chat room. Please, by all means, do so. The chat is essentially what's going on elsewhere from the border states who are sending migrants to sanctuary states, counties, and cities. And the hue and cry across the nation for that particular practice has remained unabated for days. That's why we're talking about it here on the Wells Report. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Martha's Vineyard is a very fancy enclave of Northeastern Yankee pride. Yes. They simply don't just let anyone in there. You just can't. Anyway, that being said, the Martha's Vineyard Chamber of Commerce released an update to what they called a humanitarian crisis. Quote, to our island community, there's an update on our current humanitarian crisis on Martha's Vineyard. We thank the people for their continued help. Yeah. Twitter immediately mocked the update. Okay. Let me see if I can get more of this information on there for you, just so I can do this. Let me see if I can make this. Yeah. Okay. So I've done that, and I don't think I can. Well, I might be able to make it. There you go. Here, let me see if I can show this to you so that you can read it. Yeah, that's. Let me see what I can do about making that bigger. And then I'll go over it. See what I'm doing here? I'm computing. That is exactly what I'm doing. Okay, that really didn't help much, actually. That didn't help much. Let's try actual size. Let's try that. And no. So anyway, you can't read it. We continue to provide shelter, food, and care to individuals who have arrived on the island yesterday. A coalition of vineyard towns, community-based, and nonprofit groups are assisting in the effort. We continue to work very closely with our state partners who have pledged support and resources for any unmet needs that we may have and that we may have. That's bad choice of words there. Don't they mean, I'm sorry, but don't you mean the immigrants, the problems that they may have? I'm just asking. Anyway, so that gives you some idea of the tone deafness of that. So anyway, what happened after that? Well, I'm glad you asked. There was immediate backlash on Twitter. Twitter users mocked the update, noting the announcement itself reported only approximately 50 individuals present in a city while border towns struggle with thousands per day. Washington Examiner columnist Beckett Adams tweeted, I'm sorry, putting out a public notice of this nature for the influx of 50 people is objectively funny. Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. X Strategies LLC senior digital strategist Greg Price wrote, they're declaring 50 people being flown to a town that takes thousands of visitors per year a humanitarian crisis. Are you seeing what's going on here? I mean, this is just absolutely rife with irony. Wow. 50 illegal aliens called a humanitarian crisis on Martha's Vineyard. Just imagine the crisis policies advocated by MV and Massachusetts. Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts have caused in places that hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants show up in every day. Town Hall columnist Derek Hunter then wrote, screw them, send more. That's true. Actually, every single person that comes across this border after they're processed into the country and so on and so forth, and you do all the things that you do to limited effect, whatever that is, they should be sent to sanctuary cities from one end of the country to the other, especially the ones that are so prideful about it. Let them live with the actual psychological gift they've given themselves for feeling so virtuous by being a sanctuary city. Yeah, let's introduce them to the realities. Back with more in a moment. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. So 50 migrants went from Florida by way of Venezuela to Martha's Vineyard, and that created a public crisis. It was a public emergency. That's right. A humanitarian crisis indeed. Yeah. Well, fortunately, they've come up with a solution for all of that, crises. U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, Rachel Rollins, says she plans to speak with the Department of Justice about possible actions regarding the transportation of migrants to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Rollins made the statements yesterday during a press conference. The migrants then boarded a bus today that departed the Liberal Island and now has arrived at Joint Base Cape Cod, which is a military base at a shelter that has been set up by Republican Governor Charlie Baker. We're looking into the Martha's Vineyard case and we'll be speaking with members of the Department of Justice, said Rollins. Massachusetts isn't the only place where this has happened. She continued, we have other sister communities, whether it's D.C., New York, California, where we've seen things like this, and we're hoping to get some input from the Department of Justice about what our next steps might be, if any, at all. I'm betting for the last clause in that sentence. Fox News contacted the Department of Justice for a comment, did not receive a response. Isn't that strange? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis followed through on his promise to drop off illegal immigrants in progressive states, sending 2 planes full of migrants to Martha's Vineyard on Wednesday. The migrants deplaned at Martha's Vineyard, and then there are buses and so on, taking the migrants to Joint Base Cape Cod. So indeed, arguably, since it's a military organization, although it's probably a National Guard base, the government has relieved the citizens of Martha's Vineyard from their humanitarian crisis. The Biden administration, for their part, will consider litigation options this week against Republican governors sending migrants from the border to Democrat cities. This, according to a report. This is not going anywhere. This is not going anywhere. The Friday meeting involving the White House, along with Homeland Security, State Department of State, Justice, and the Defense Departments, will also discuss other border issues amid a record number of migrants entering the country illegally, according to Axios. Meeting was scheduled before Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sent 2 charter planes full of migrants to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts on Wednesday, but after months of Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Arizona Governor Doug Ducey sending busloads of migrants from their borders to places like New York City, Chicago, and Washington, D.C., Abbott also sent 2 buses of migrants to Vice President Kamala Harris's Washington, D.C. home yesterday. Democrats have condemned the busing as migrants as political theater. President Biden yesterday said Republicans are playing politics with human beings, using them as props. What they're doing is simply wrong. It's un-American. It's reckless. He continued speaking at a Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute gala, and we have a process in place to manage migrants at the border. We're making sure it's safe and orderly and humane. Republican officials should not interfere with that process by waging these political stunts. Oh, wow. Republicans have said the migrants all volunteered to be bused. Many said they were grateful for the free ride, but others claim they thought they were being sent to different cities than where they arrived. Governor DeSantis said at a press conference on Thursday, that's yesterday, we are not a sanctuary state. It's better to be able to go to a sanctuary jurisdiction. And yes, we will help facilitate that transport for you to be able to go to greener pastures. I'm sorry, I'm giggling, aren't I? I'm sorry, I live in Texas. And there is not a conscious Texan, whether they're Republican or Democrat, that don't think this is just absolutely, ironically, amazingly amusing. It's just incredible. And then Someone pointed out the realities. Yeah. Somebody pointed out the realities. So let me see if I got this straight. There's a U.S. attorney of Massachusetts trying to figure out what the Justice Department can do to bring charges against Florida, Texas, Arizona. Is that what they're saying, for busing migrants to other cities? I really want to see what the Department of Justice comes up with. You know why? Because President Biden, regardless of what you've seen, is still the number one trafficker of human beings in the United States. He is the number one human trafficker in the United States. Check this out. DeSantis, in his press conference, pointed out the reality. President Biden flew people in the middle of the night, dumped them all across the country. There was no warning of any of it. Those people in D.C. and New York were beating their chests when President Trump was president, saying they were so proud to be sanctuary jurisdictions, saying how bad it was to have a secure border. The minute even a small fracture of what a small faction, by the way, or factor or fraction of what those border towns deal with every single day is brought to their front door, and all of a sudden they go berserk. They're so upset this is happening. President Abbott said yesterday the Biden-Harris administration continues ignoring and denying the historic crisis at our southern border, which has endangered and overwhelmed Texas communities for almost 2 years. The only thing I do have a dispute with that. This has been happening in Texas for 20 years. Our supposed border czar, Vice President Kamala Harris, has yet to even visit the border to see firsthand the impact of the open border policies she has helped implement, even going so far as to claim the border is secure. Harris has been slammed by conservatives for seemingly avoiding the border after President Biden tasked her with examining the root causes of illegal immigration soon after he took office. Amid pressure from all sides, Harris visited the border near El Paso, Texas in June of 2021, but has not been back since. She was here for 3 days. 3 days. So how are they going to charge Texas and Arizona and Florida with some supposed law? Let's even just assume they come up with some law that they can prosecute them with. How are they going to do that without having to prosecute President Biden himself? How are they going to do that? Once again, this proves something that I've said over and over and over. All you really have to do when liberal policies are running amok is just wait. Because sooner or later, they always fold back on themselves. Just like this. So you're going to come up with some sort of legal remedy for what Texas and Florida and Arizona are doing, huh? Well, they just can't move these immigrants all these places and so on and so forth. They just can't move them to, well, Chicago, D.C., and New York and Los Angeles. They can't do that. Well, wait a minute, Mr. President. That's what you do. What? Yeah. Yeah, by the way, of course, Mike Renwee points out, you really can't prosecute a sitting president. Yeah. Well, there's no real need to prosecute a sitting president. But they're sure as hell not going to be able to prosecute Florida, Texas, and Arizona for doing what the president has been doing. They simply can't do it. They simply can't do it. Considering litigation. Really? By the way, while we're at it, how many people has President Biden sent around the country? Yeah? Well, according to the New York Times, 1 million migrants have been allowed into the United States. 1 million. Yeah, there are places that report 1.05 million, but let's just stick with round numbers because my math sucks. Eileen Sullivan writes, at a modest hotel a few miles from the ocean in South Portland, Maine, most of the rooms have been occupied this summer by families from African countries seeking asylum. 192 adults, 119 children. They are among more than the 1 million undocumented immigrants who have been allowed into the country temporarily after crossing the border during President Biden's tenure, part of a record-breaking cascade of irregular migration around the world. This is being reported by the New York Times. Distinct from hundreds of thousands who have entered the country undetected during President Biden's term, many of the 1 million are hoping for asylum and will have to wait 7 years on average before a decision on their case is reached because of the nation's clogged immigration system. The hotel in South Portland is among a handful in the region, in addition to Portland's Family Shelter, that are offering temporary housing for hundreds of new immigrants. Where did they come from? Did they come from Florida? No. Did they come from Texas? How about Arizona? No. They came from President Biden. President Biden is the number one trafficker of human beings in the United States right now. Number one. By a long shot. And now what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to stomp on Texas, Arizona, and Florida. Yeah, that is a no-go. That is absolutely a no-go. By the way, in case you're wondering who else is talking, so glad you brought that up. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sending migrants to Democrat-run cities. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi joined Fox News in arguing the federal government is using the Justice Department for political purposes. You think? Here we go again. Threats to potentially investigate people that we disagree with by the FBI, the Department of Justice. That seems to be the new way of handling political disagreement. But no, what they're doing is completely illegal. Oh, I'm sorry. But no, what we're doing is completely legal. Okay? What we're doing is completely legal. What the president is doing by letting people come here illegally, that's illegal. I don't see Gavin Newsom asking for an investigation of the president for violating federal law. Okay, that's Paxton saying no. What we're doing, in other words, what Texas is doing, is completely legal. What the president is doing by letting people come here illegally is illegal. Once again, the reality is catching up with this flagrantly hypocritical sanctuary city nonsense. Paxton said the state of Texas, quote, has the right to send these people out if we want to, unquote. He continued, all the political stunts are being pulled by the Biden administration. I have never heard a complaint from a mayor. I've never heard a complaint from any Democrat politician decrying what damage is being done to our state, and even some of these migrants who are dying along the way. I've not heard a single complaint. Former Florida AG Pam Bondi slammed Newsom for complaining about Abbott and DeSantis bussing out illegals, said he should focus on the problems facing his own state. The crime rate is skyrocketing in California. He should worry about crime, the legitimate crime in California, not Florida and Texas and the border states trying to protect their own citizens. Bondi pointed out the irony of sanctuary states complaining about the influx of migrants. I'm not sure how Governor Newsom can say that it's cruel and inhumane and horrific to send people to Martha's Vineyard. And in Massachusetts, they claim to be a sanctuary city to help people. I would think these people would be very happy to see these immigrants there. Bondi said Americans are sick and tired of the border crisis and inaction from the Biden administration. Actually, that's not really true. There's been all kinds of action by the Biden administration. They've already imported to cities, without telling them anything, 1 million people. They just show up in the middle of the night. An airplane lands, and people who don't speak English in most cases, they get off and start building a new life right that moment. Courtesy of the Biden administration. I just thought about something here. The Biden administration says they're going to try to see what they can do about finding something to prosecute Texas, Arizona, and Florida on. They said, there are plenty of facilities right down there in those states. They don't need to send these people anywhere. Well, okay. Then how about you start paying us? You start sending us money. Yeah. We can send you a bill even. We'll send you a bill about how much it's costing to process 200,000 people a month into Texas alone. We'll send you a bill. And because we have all these vaunted facilities down here, all this infrastructure, I'm sure you'll pay that bill. Absolutely sure of it. Until you do, however, guess what? We're sending you Christmas presents early. To all you wonderful people that believe in the beauty of sanctuary cities, where people can break the law but still be safe, we're gonna let you have the reality of your political delirium. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. There are all kinds of reactions to these immigrants being bussed all over the country. The Biden administration looking for some kind of legal remedy. There is no legal remedy that he himself would not be guilty of. He is the number one human trafficker in human history, in American history. He's moved 1 million people into the interior of the United States in the middle of the night, buses and airplanes, without notifying any of the communities it's happening. They just show up. Why is that? Why is he doing that? Well, because if he doesn't move them away from the border, then somebody with a television camera keeps pointing at a big long line of people suffering. And he'd rather take the political damage of sending people out in the middle of the night to places they've never heard of to foist 100, 200 illegal immigrants on a city without telling them in the middle of the night. And now what he's going to do is he's going to come up with some sort of legal remedy to get rid of the mean people from Florida, Texas, and Arizona. No, you're not. And yes, California Governor Gavin Newsom says, all you got to do, because he's kind of stupid, all you got to do is just charge Governor Abbott, Governor Ducey, and Governor DeSantis with kidnapping. Right. Abbott said border communities are begging for relief. The White House refuses to change course. We have a president who has refused to go see the chaos that he's created on the border, and a border czar, Kamala Harris, who refuses to say what's going on there. Abbott said if they will not go to the border, then we're going to take the border to them so they can see the challenges they're imposing to the entire United States of America. Seriously. This idea of sending migrants to all of these sanctuary cities, that needs to continue unabated every single day. Every single day. Until these people get it. Abbott said the administration needs to personally deal with the consequences of their policies. Governor Abbott responded to President Biden calling his actions reckless and un-American. Abbott emphasized the United Nations labeled the U.S.-Mexico border as the deadliest land crossing in the world. That's kind of weird, especially when you think about Turkmenistan and Afghanistan. Just saying. What's inhumane is his policies that attract people to lose their lives who are being humanly trafficked or human trafficked, who are victims of rape and even murder. What the president needs to understand that he is killing people with his open border policies. He's destroying his own country. It's true. Governor Abbott slammed Governor Newsom, for claiming that migrants are being kidnapped and said the migrants volunteer to be bused to New York and other destinations. I know the law very well. We have followed the law to the T and made sure everything we've done comports with federal law. This is Greg Abbott. He then pointed out the silence from Democrats while the Biden administration sends flights of migrants throughout the United States. All Biden has to do is replicate what President Trump did, and that would be would lead to a reduction in border crossings, and that would lead to an elimination of us busing people to regions across the country, said Abbott. Yesterday, Governor Abbott's office responded to White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre after she said Republican governors sending migrants to Martha's Vineyard in Washington are performing an illegal stunt. Texas Governor Abbott's office sent in response that the White House is led by the hypocrite in chief. Ow. Ow. The White House is full of a bunch of hypocrites led by the hypocrite in chief who has been flying plane loads of migrants across the country and oftentimes under the cover of night. This according to Governor Abbott's press secretary, Renee Ease. It's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. But wait, there's more. What do you think the mainstream media is saying? You're not going to believe it. They have unleashed on all this. Hillary Clinton can't possibly miss an opportunity to make something public all about her. She's going to weigh in here in just a couple of moments. And predictably, NBC's Chuck Todd, right, who hosts Meet the Press, you'll be amazed at what he's calling for. We'll get to all of this coming up in just a couple of moments right here on the Wells Report. But here we go. Here we go. All of these people that are stomping on Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, all these people are doing this, are only exposing themselves for what they truly are. They are political sociopathic hypocrites. That is it. That is absolutely it. See, I believe I can't do anything with that. I can't do anything with that, Miss Yvonne. Do me a favor, send that to me. Send that to me on a iMessage or under Messenger. Just typical text, so I can get a look at that. Would you please? I sure would appreciate it. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. You should stay right where you are. We've got more of this broadcast, including epic media response to the immigrant moves. That's next on the Wells Report. All right. God bless all y'all. Thanks very much for being a part of the show, as always. And we'll be back in just a moment. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. Welcome. What do we do here? What do we do here that's different than 2 million other podcasts? Well, we bring you the news, the real news. We report it honestly, straightforwardly. What we do is we take that news, we analyze it for fact and bias. We point out each. Then what we do is I offer commentary. That is not news. That's my opinion, just like yours, just as valuable as yours. So let's compare our opinions with each other, shall we? And that's debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. It is Fishing Shirt Friday. We've been talking about the hypocrisy of all of these sanctuary city enclaves around the country, complaining about Texas, Florida, Arizona, actually sending them immigrants to their sanctuary cities. They've created this idea in the minds of people traveling from all over the world to the United States that if they can just get across that border, they can find themselves a home where they have sanctuary. None of them are in Texas. As a matter of fact, it's illegal to be a sanctuary city in Texas. And so what ends up happening is that these people are lured to the United States, and at least the ones who come through Texas stay here. The report today is that now Latinos outnumber whites in Texas for the first time since this used to be part of Mexico. So what's going on as Ron DeSantis, Doug Ducey, and Greg Abbott send immigrants by bus? At least it's public. At least they tell them they're coming. They say they don't have notice, but they do. So what happens? What's going on now? Well, media outlets, the mainstream media, the other part of this sinister socialist political machine, is in full song today. This, according to Fox News, media outlets across the dial erupted in anger and disbelief at Florida Governor Ron DeSantis after he flew 50 migrants to the ritzy liberal enclave of Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. DeSantis' office revealed to Fox News that the governor was responsible for sending 2 planes of illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard in response to the Biden administration's failure to secure the southern border. Democrats across the board, including representatives from Martha's Vineyard, condemned the governor, accused him of using illegal migrants as political pawns. Left-leaning figures on notable media networks quickly parroted the Democrat talking points, motivated to discuss issues around immigration after over a year of limited coverage. A Thursday ABC News report introduced the story by calling it a stunt that used human beings to score political points. Well, at least they admitted that political points were being scored. CBS Mornings ushered a segment on Martha's Vineyard detailing how migrants ended up being used for politics in an inhumane way. Inhumane. Okay. The word inhumane was a good one to use in this particular case, said CBS's Gayle King. People don't know where they're going. People there don't know that you're coming. Right. It's sort of like another day in Texas. If you don't believe me, come on down, Gayle. We'd love to have you. The View lashed out at DeSantis. I know, who cares? Co-host Whoopi Goldberg calling him a bonehead who made a nasty move. Boy, that's some high-quality discourse, isn't it? Bonehead, nasty move. There's no excuse for tricking people, trapping people, traumatizing people who have come to the United States. This according to CNN political commentator Van Jones on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Human beings, Burnett chimed in. Human beings, Jones replied. Meanwhile, CNN host Jake Tapper, noting DeSantis had likely made this move to appeal to the Republican base, blamed the same base for the lack of meaningful immigration legislation up to this point. He claimed that Presidents George W. Bush and Donald Trump had tried to pass immigration reform, or at least provide lip service on immigration, but were eventually worried how it would play to some conservatives. Oh, really? Did Chuck Todd just say something nice about Donald Trump? These stunts are being done to appeal to the Republican base, but the solution's right there. And it seems like the Republican base doesn't understand that the fear of them has kept the solution from happening. According to Democrat Party leaders, the solution is already in place. Leave the border open and let nature take its course. Some media figures even accused DeSantis of engaging in human trafficking by sending Texas based migrants up to Massachusetts, forgetting that President Biden has moved 1 million people, illegal immigrants, to all manners of towns all over the United States. 1 million of them. You want to talk human trafficking? Just keep talking. MSNBC's Morning Joe host Joe Scarborough called the transportation of migrants to Martha's Vineyard political human trafficking. It's not political, it's just human trafficking. You don't have to put that word in there, Joe. And accused DeSantis of taking advantage of migrants for a stunt aimed at owning the libs. What? Is there any conversation that's being had through your reporting about whether this is a crime? Said MSNBC host Joy Reid, asked of Dave O'Valley of the Miami Herald, because this has been called trafficking. There's a lot of chatter now that what these governors, including Ron DeSantis, have done is to have trafficked these families. Did you miss when I said President Biden is the number one human trafficker in the United States? President Biden, number one. By a long shot. Yeah, Joy Reid went on to say DeSantis' actions were cruel, sick, and sadistic. Does she know what these words mean? Why is she using them? They don't have anything to do with reality. CNN's New Day filmmaker Ken Burns joined the show to promote his new PBS documentary titled The U.S. and the Holocaust. He is actually comparing moving migrants from the Texas border to sanctuary cities. He's actually comparing that to the Holocaust. Wow. During the discussion, actor John Berman attempted to tie the story about Martha's Vineyard to Burns' film and prompted the documentary filmmaker by saying, all of his documentaries make you think about where we are now. And we woke up to the news this morning that Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida sent 2 plane loads of migrants to Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Massachusetts. Berman denied he was making a one-for-one comparison or a parallel between Nazi Germany and DeSantis, but claimed it does address some of the same themes that are part of this documentary. It's like these people. They reach in their pockets, they pull out this illegal weapon. Pew, 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 pew. Bird said this. Well, it's the abstraction of human life. It's basically saying you can use human life as you can use a human life that is as valuable as yours or mine's or Lynn's and put it in a position of becoming a political pawn in somebody's authoritarian game. He added that DeSantis had weaponized human being for a political game, a move he claimed was right out of the authoritarian playbook. He's comparing, what he's saying is weaponizing human beings, which is what the Nazis did with the Jews. He is comparing Ron DeSantis with a Nazi leadership figure. What in the hell is going on? Just goes to show you that if you put a microphone in front of these people, sooner or later, they're going to start telling you what they really think. The historic comparisons continued over at MSNBC, where Reverend Al Sharpton urged people to raise questions about the racial notations involved in DeSantis' decision. He claimed Republican governors had targeted cities with black mayors, including Washington, D.C., New York City, and Chicago. Sharpton compared the arrival of migrants in Martha's Vineyard to the segregationist strategy of the 1960s. Well, isn't it sort of like busing to achieve racial integration in the schools? I mean, there are not a lot of Latinos in Martha's Vineyard. We need to move some in there, don't we? I mean, doesn't that make sense too, Reverend Sharpton? You see, I would have said that. If I had been actually interviewing Reverend Sharpton, I would have said, well, what about school busing? He would have melted down. Yeah. During the fight around segregation, said Sharpton, the segregationists bust people to Massachusetts to say, hey, you're going to meet with John Kennedy, told black people you're going to meet with President John Kennedy. You're going to get a discussion about the things that you're concerned about, said Sharpton. It was a bogus trip. They got to Massachusetts. There was no John Kennedy. There was no discussion. And they're using these migrants in the same way with the same false promises. I don't think anybody told these migrants they were going to meet John Kennedy, Al. I could be wrong. There have so far been more than 2 million migrant encounters in the fiscal year alone, on top of more than 1.7 million encounters in fiscal 2021. The 50 migrants sent to Martha's Vineyard would be just 0.0025% of that number. While many of those are returned either via Title 42 or other methods by the Border Patrol, a significant number are released into the U.S. to await their asylum hearings. 1.05 million at this particular moment, which can take up to 8 years. It also does not include hundreds of thousands that slip past agents known as getaways, or gotaways, rather. Yeah. What about Hillary Clinton? What about Hillary Clinton? She says this. On Friday, today, Hillary Clinton agreed with MSNBC host assessments the sending of 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard was literally human trafficking, and claimed that no one wants open borders. Well, obviously, you do want open borders, Ms. Former Secretary of State. How do I know this? Because the borders are open. Joining Morning Joe, Ms. Clinton concurred with host Joe Scarborough's sharply critical remarks about the move by Representative, or make that Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, which set off a media firestorm about the fierce debate about how the country handles illegal immigration. Scarborough repeatedly called it human trafficking by DeSantis and accused him of using innocent people as political pawns. Somebody needs to ask Joe Scarborough about the human trafficking President Biden's been doing. Don't you think? I mean, it's pretty simple, isn't it? Yeah. Hillary said, I think, Joe, you've laid out the craziness of the time in which we're living, where some politicians would rather not only have an issue, but exacerbate it to the extent of literally human trafficking, as you said. So many other Americans, I happen to believe still the majority of Americans, are good-hearted and generous when people end up on their doorstep in need, they respond. They'll feed them and house them, and the kids in AP Spanish class will be let out of high school so they can go and translate. That's the kind of American spirit we try to celebrate at the Clinton Global Initiative. Okay, so can we send some immigrants to Chappaqua next? Can we do that? Because we should have a bunch of immigrants show up on her doorstep so that she can feed and clothe them. Don't you think? I think that's the next move. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Give us a call. Take part in the broadcast. By the way, you can support this broadcast, and I certainly hope you do. Please subscribe. Hit the subscription button and subscribe to this broadcast. Also, there's a little bell that rings whenever we go on the air, and I would love it if you would do that too. You can also just hit like and share. Share this. If you think this broadcast has any kind of merit whatsoever, share it with your friends, please. And if, oh, by the way, you would like to support this broadcast monetarily, and remember, this is an independent endeavor, man. I have, man, this biggest gamble of my career. This is the biggest gamble of my career. I'm an independent freelance journalist, and I do a newscast every single day, 3 hours worth, in fact, where we take the news and we turn it into news as opposed to propaganda. And it's like I said, there's only one group of people that can support this show financially, and that's you. The wonderful thing about my radio broadcasts over the years, and it's almost 50 years, by the way, is that the listeners have always been there. The people who we actually work for have always been there to listen to the shows that I do. And while it makes me uncomfortable to ask that you directly support the show, I've noticed that other people do it. And so what I thought I would do is I thought I'd toss my hat into the ring. If you'd like to support this broadcast, please do. Go to patreon.com/The Wells Report. That is Patreon, patreon.com/The Wells Report. Thanks very much. We've got a lot of people that are doing it, and I sincerely appreciate everyone. I truly do. It means so much to me. I think this work's important. I'd like to keep doing it, and thanks very much for your help. Let's get back to work. By the way, when we're talking about this, Chuck Todd of NBC asserted that it was inhumane to send illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard because the location doesn't have any infrastructure. Really? Okay, Chuck, I've got something I need to tell you. First of all, when it comes to this, if you declare yourself a sanctuary city, you had better start building infrastructure. The only reason that Martha's Vineyard doesn't have any infrastructure, even though they are a sanctuary city, is because they were very sure that no illegal immigrants would ever get to Martha's Vineyard. Welcome to reality. It's not inhumane at all. As a matter of fact, Margie says these children and parents and so on had been raped numerous times by cartel thugs that are hired to bring them here. It's not inhumane to send them to Martha's Vineyard. It absolutely isn't. And to say so is unbelievably tone deaf. How can you be somebody that actually is the host of the oldest continuously running television broadcast in history? How can you be a host and be so blind to the reality around you? I just can't believe it. I can't believe it. I just keep thinking, it would be really, really cool to just to be the host of Meet the Press for 3 months. I would just give me 3 months. Just let me handle the news on Meet the Press for 3 months. Could not possibly do worse than Chuck Todd. It's not possible for me. It would not be possible for me to do worse. It's unbelievable. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number again, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Fishing Shirt Friday. Fishing Shirt Friday. Back with more coming up in just a couple of seconds. Just exactly what is a special master and what is Raymond Deary? We'll find out next. Stay put. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. It's Fishing Shirt Friday. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast. You can do so by calling 817-379-2172. Give us a call. Tell us what you're going to be doing this weekend. Love to hear from you. All right, so get on the phone and give me a buzz. That would be great. All right, so off we go. So, a federal judge, U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon, has appointed a special master to go over the Mar-a-Lago papers, the papers that were seized by the FBI on August 8th. So who did she appoint? Raymond Dearie is a former chief federal judge in Brooklyn. He also served on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to be the special master. He will be the special master reviewing the documents seized at former President Donald Trump's Florida estate. So I actually, when I heard that he was in the mix, I said that's probably not something that the Justice Department was going to agree to. Because as you know, the FBI got caught red-handed lying to the FISA court. And they got barbecued for it too. Now, most of that was kept private. But I can't believe that that won't be on the mind of Raymond Dearie, who sat on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. He is, I was surprised. Like I said, I didn't think that he would be the right guy because I didn't think that the DOJ was going to accept him. But surprise, here he is. I think it would be, I think he's a great choice, at least from his credentials. Now, what is he thinking about? What is he doing? U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon refused to lift her temporary prohibition on the Justice Department continuing their review of documents for their criminal investigation. The department has appealed that part of her ruling. It's not going to get overturned. That's going to stand. The courts just aren't going to deal with it. They're just not. Cannon appointed Dearie at Trump's request for an independent review of thousands of documents seized at Mar-a-Lago, including dozens marked secret or top secret. Cannon ordered Trump to pay for 100% of the costs for the review. She also granted access to all the documents, including the classified records, under controlled access conditions. Please understand, this guy, he's sat on the FISA court. His security clearance is just as high as it needs to be. It's the compartmentalization. Does he have a need to know? Well, yeah, in this case, he does. The Justice Department, which had opposed a special master as unnecessary, accepted Dearie because of his experience in national security cases and with questions of attorney-client privilege. But Cannon would not allow the Justice Department to continue the review of about 100 classified documents while the special master does his review. The FBI had searched Mar-a-Lago August 8th for evidence of mishandling national defense documents under the Espionage Act or under the ideas of obstruction of justice. Indeed, if the court were willing to accept the government's representations that select portions of the seized materials are, without exception, government property not subject to any privileges, and did not think a special master would serve a meaningful purpose, the court would have denied the plaintiff's special master request. This according to Eileen Cannon, saying, in other words, I know what I'm doing. There is a reason for this. There is a reason for this. And that's good. This is the way the Justice Department is supposed to work. That's why we call them judges. Judge Eileen Cannon is somebody that apparently can look at this and say, yeah, there are special circumstances here, and we're going to deal with those special circumstances. And I like it. And I like the fact that she gave a stiff arm back to the DOJ. If the courts were willing to accept the government's representations that selected portions of the seized materials are, without exception, government property not subject to privilege, and did not think a special master would serve a meaningful purpose, the court would have denied the plaintiff's special master request. In other words, the court is unwilling to accept the government's representations that the materials they're talking about are, without exception, government property. In other words, she realizes that a president's papers belong to the president. Now, that is the way USA Today reported it. Pretty straightforward reporting on that. Right down the center line. I like that. This is from NPR. Judge Eileen Cannon appointed Judge Raymond Dearie as the special master to review documents seized during a court-approved search of former President Donald Trump's Florida home in August. Interesting. During a court-approved search. Aren't all searches court-approved? I mean, if there's a search warrant that's approved by a court, why would you put that in there? Okay. Dearie, 78 years old, a former chief judge to the federal court in the Eastern District of New York, was one of the special master candidates suggested by Trump, whom the Justice Department did not object to. Cannon directed Dearie to issue interim reports and recommendations as appropriate during the review and set a November 30th deadline to complete his work. The Justice Department has said it will appeal the order for a special master. Here's what you need to know, according to NPR. Republican President Ronald Reagan appointed Dearie, then 41, to serve as a federal judge in New York in 1986. He assumed senior status in 2011. Justice Department lawyers have said that Dearie has, quote, substantial judicial experience and is thus qualified for the special master job. Yeah, he most certainly is. He got his law degree from St. John's University School of Law in 1969, and then eventually served as an attorney for the Eastern District of New York before Reagan tapped him to serve as judge. He went on to serve as the chief judge from 2007 to 2011. Andrew Weissman, a federal prosecutor, former senior member of the special counsel Robert Mueller's team and a special master himself, described Dearie as compassionate, fair, and the Platonic ideal of what you want in a judge. And I see that would be one thing coming from anybody besides Andrew Weissman. But Andrew Weissman is saying this, and yeah, he is as partisan and as biased as they come. I don't know what to make of that statement. He went on to say, if you ask both prosecutors and lawyers, they would say the same thing. He is just so fair. It's unusual to have a judge where both sides have enormous praise for someone. When Weissman was starting out as a federal prosecutor in Brooklyn, the judge was late for a court appearance. A few days later, I got in the mail a handwritten apology from him. It was remarkable because judges have a lot of power. They don't need to do that. Daniel R. Alonzo, partner at Buckley LLP and a former assistant U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of New York, called Dearie an old school gentleman and unfailingly polite. Judge Dearie is a judge who, unfailingly fair, would never tolerate the kinds of arguments that Trump lawyers tend to put forward. See, this is just degenerate partisan judicial nonsense. And NPR is right there with it. All right. Let's go to the Wall Street Journal. This is their version of the story. Jen Wolfe, by the way, said it. Hang on just a couple of seconds. Let me say hello to, hi. Welcome to the Wells Report. Hello? You got to turn the radio down. You must turn the radio down. Turn the radio down. Turn the radio down.
It's down.
I can still hear it. But it's way in the background. Okay, so who's this?
This is Max Guadiano. How are you?
Hey, Max Guadiano. What's going on, brother? What's new in your world?
A pleasantly relaxful weekend.
Boy, that must be nice. What are you going to be doing?
Well, let's see. Cleaning house.
Ah, great. That's my favorite too.
Going out to downtown San Antonio.
Uh-huh.
Have some food and drinks.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
What's on your mind, man? Thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
Oh, just, you're doing a great job on the show. I like your show, especially today.
Thank you.
There's a lot of irony in this whole immigration thing that you've been covering today.
Isn't the hypocrisy just amazing? It's just rife. I mean, how do these people say these things with a straight face?
And I like it. And the other part of it is how everybody jumps on it and makes it their story by including racism and stuff. When
sure,
it's just another piece to divide the country.
Yeah, it's awful. Max, thanks very much for calling us. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend. I love you, brother. Take care, okay?
You too, man.
All right, buddy. Thank you. That is one of the greatest chiefs to ever wear a United States Air Force uniform. That is Max Guadiano. He's a dear friend of mine. He used to be a colleague of mine in the Texas State Guard. He is simply the very best. So Raymond Deary, according to the Wall Street Journal, has been tasked with reviewing documents seized from former President Donald Trump's Florida resort. He has support from unlikely quarters. Mr. Trump's legal team and one of the senior lawyers in the Justice Department's probe into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. They're talking about Weissman. Judge Deary emerged as a consensus choice for the role of special master, appointed by a federal judge in Mar-a-Lago, or in the Mar-a-Lago investigation into President Trump's handling of classified information and presidential records. As special master, Judge Deary will determine whether personal items or attorney-client communications were improperly swept up in the August search of Mar-a-Lago by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Agents, they did. It's not so much that they're going to try to slap around the FBI for taking materials that they didn't need to take. I mean, they could have been a little bit more commonsensical, if I could use that term. They could, by saying, well, we don't need his passports, do we? That was really a mistake. It was also borderline mean-spirited. I mean, I could make that case. I could say that the FBI, wanted to have that little tidbit of information. Oh, and we took his passports too, because that's what happens when the federal government is taking a look at you from an investigative standpoint. They take your passport. Yeah, so that was probably kind of a mean-spirited thing. They should have left those alone. The special master is going to go through all of that stuff and determine what is privileged information and what is not privileged information from a fair standpoint. And while the Department of Justice can be as upset as they want to be, and they can protest as much as they want to protest, and they can appeal as much as they wish, they can't get away from the fact that as we come to this particular event, both the FBI and the DOJ have dirty hands. You never appear in a court with dirty hands, and they do. FBI tainting, warping, changing, creating evidence, all for political purposes. The DOJ absolutely abusing federal power. Anybody who says anything that they don't believe the 2020 election gets a visit from the FBI. By the way, that's not misinformation. That's actual truth. And so these are the situations that we have here. Is Judge Deary going to be the right guy? I don't know. We're going to see. We are just going to have to see. There's no telling. When they decided that they were going to do a special master, and they were actually going to try to get a fair look at these documents, because we have seen the DOJ and the FBI twist evidence beyond what is even ethical. I was happy on one hand because I said, okay, at least we have a fair judge. That would be Eileen Cannon. And now we have perhaps a special master that would actually be fair as well. Seems like this guy would be the right guy for that. But we don't know. I also said this. I said, a fair appraisal of all of these documents may hurt former President Donald Trump. It may hurt him. The question is, will the process be fair? The trick is, okay, so how would we know if the process is fair? Very likely through the commentary of the various parties and try to discern what's kind of in the middle, right? By the way, someone says the FBI did not get what they were looking for. You know what I think? I think Randy's completely correct. I don't think the FBI did get what they were looking for. Because if the FBI had gotten what they were looking for, we would have already known it. Once again, Donald Trump has been the most investigated human being in public life in the United States of America. Sooner or later, they've pretty much gotten every possible particle of information about you that they can. So at some point, you're going to get to the end of this and say, this guy's not guilty of anything. And so if that's the case, and it's going to happen before 2024, if he gets through this without anybody laying a glove on him, which I suspect is going to be the case, how will the Democrats campaign against him? Have you thought about that? After all of this, if he gets through this without getting stomped, how will the Democrats be able to campaign against him? Because none of them have suffered the kind of scrutiny that this man has. None of them. You're listening to the Wells Report. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast. Our telephone number, as Max just pointed out, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. This is the Wells Report. Back in just a moment. Bye-bye. There you go. Just talking to a buddy of mine. It's so nice. Fishing Shirt Friday in progress. You should be wearing your fishing shirt. You know what I'm thinking about doing? What I'm thinking about doing is I'm thinking about getting, I'm thinking about getting some Wells Report patches. You know, they'd be just like the ones on this Wells Report, the Wells Report logo. I'm going to get some Wells Report patches. And that way you can sew the Wells Report patch on your favorite fishing shirt. What do you think? I think that's a great idea. I'm going to do it. And you know what? Because people have actually been supporting the show on Patreon, I might actually be able to afford it. How cool would that be? This is the Wells Report. So Donald Trump, former president of the United States, in a circumstance where he could be the next Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland was the president. He was not reelected, and then he came back in the subsequent election and got reelected. He served his second term, one term removed. And Donald Trump could be the next president to do that. And I believe that if indeed that happens, if President Trump becomes President Trump one more time, the reason that he would be reelected or elected again would be because of all of this. Because of all of this abuse of a former president of the United States. This is just abuse. This is the most grotesque abuse of power we have ever seen in the United States. It is awful. Now, I'm not saying that because I voted for Donald Trump twice. I did. It wasn't because I like Donald Trump. I think the guy's a vulgarian. I really do. You know, when it comes to presidents, I got to be perfectly honest with you. I like the style of George W. Bush, although I also admire a guy who can take care of himself in a bar fight, and that's Donald Trump. Donald Trump is still standing because he is one tough SOB. It's absolutely a fact. Absolutely a fact. And so what we find is we find Donald Trump suffering the slings and arrows, the hard work of trying to return the government of the United States to an organization that works to the benefit of the people of the United States, instead of to the benefit of people who use the United States and their positions in government to aggrandize and enrich themselves. That's the way I see this government operating right now. A government of the government, by the government, for the government. It's not the way it's supposed to be. It's not the way it's supposed to be. Let's see what else is going on. They fear Trump and know that he knows. Yes, he's got an awful lot of information about everything that he has been fighting against and exposing since he stepped on that escalator at Trump Tower in New York. That's exactly why they're doing it. Correct. Yvonne wants a patch. Okay, I think I got a patch manufacturer. I'm going to go see how much they want. Jube, the publicist of the Wells Report, netmediaconsultants.com. Go to netmediaconsultants.com. If you need publicity, she's the person. Jube Dankworth. But will he automatically be a lame duck in not being able to run for a third term? That is correct. This would be his second term. He cannot run for re-election after this. Yes, he would be a lame duck, which is something else the Democrats fear. The reason that they went after Donald Trump for his re-election was because they knew what he would do as a lame duck president. And he is still the possibility of having a lame duck administration, in which case he would run roughshod over all of these people that have abused their power in trying to get a hold of him. This is true. That's absolutely true. Donald Trump represents a genuine threat to the self-styled totalitarian political class that believe that they are untouchable by the American people. That Donald Trump was elected in the first place is a testament to the failure of the people who currently hold the reins of power in Washington, D.C. to operate in the public interest. That Donald Trump was elected, just the mere fact that he was elected instead of one of the hand-picked party faithful, should have shown these political parties that they're in trouble with the American people. I believe that there is one party that is so arrogant they don't care. They don't care what the American people think. The other party is so afraid of something completely new and something upsetting the status quo that what they do is they stand still and allow the thugs to do their evil work against President Trump. Notice I'm not telling you which party is which. You figure it out for yourself. What I'm trying to tell you is that Donald Trump is actually doing as much as he possibly can for the United States of America. Whether you agree with it or not is moot. But what's happening to this guy may just get him elected in 2024 because they're going at him too hard, too heavy, and they're wrong. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. Thanks for being here. This is the Wells Report. One more hour on Fishing Shirt Friday. You stay right where you are, okay? Thanks very much for being here. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. Hi, my name is John David Wells. What we do on this broadcast is report the news, the real news. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. I make commentary. That's just my opinion. That is not the news. I differentiate between opinion and news on this broadcast. I don't want you to be confused. And we debate. We debate. That is the cornerstone of this broadcast, and I sincerely appreciate it when you do it. Give me a buzz. Let me know what's going on. 817-379-2172. That's 817-379-2172. You can also join us on the chat room. Let's take a look at what's going on in the chat right this very moment. Always out of context. Let's see. What are we talking about here? Okay. Let's see. Will he automatically be a lame duck? That's where we left off. Yes, he will automatically be a lame duck, and that is what Democrats fear most. That's what the left fears most. There's a big difference between leftists and Democrats. Okay? Leftists are socialist totalitarians. Okay? They are fascist communists. They are anti-American. And they prove it every time they open their mouth. Every time somebody says, you know, we need to abolish the Second Amendment, that's anti-American. It's absolutely anti-American. Further, that when you abolish the Second Amendment, totalitarianism then ensues. Don't believe me? Just take a look at some of the police videos coming out of Australia and Canada. Seriously. For that matter, Great Britain. That's totalitarianism. And so when I say these things, it's not because I just pull this out of my pocket. It's because I've actually thought about all of this. Anyway, so yeah, the president would have a very serious amount of work to do should he be reelected. I'm talking about President Trump. Let's see, he'll win his second term just so he can get back at the libs. I don't think so. No, I think that what's going to happen is if President Trump was indeed reelected, I think what would happen is he would restore what worked in the first term. Would he certainly create some serious oversight of some of the organizations that have been pummeling him over the last 6 years? Certainly. And I think some of that is due. How much of it? Don't know. But like we see, the FBI, swings back and forth from political monster to absolute perfect law enforcement. Now they're somewhere in this pendulum's arc, right? You can determine that. So let's see what else. That's why a DeSantis candidacy would be better in 2024 than President Donald Trump. In point of fact, let me point this out. I have voted for President Trump twice. Would I vote for him a third time? Maybe. I'm waiting to see who runs in 2024. There are going to be some heavy hitters available. I'm less enthusiastic about Ron DeSantis than a lot of people are. Not because I don't think he's a good candidate. It's not because I don't think he's a good governor. I just see too much politics in him. And I think in my particular point of view, I think politics is the problem rather than the solution. To thus go to a creature of politics to somehow solve some of these political problems we have in the United States, I don't see it. I don't. That being said, Mike Pompeo, he's still a heavyweight. Ron DeSantis is a heavyweight. Mike Pompeo is a heavyweight. If I had to pick the people that I think are probably going to emerge from the primary process, it'll be Trump, DeSantis, and Pompeo. We will see, but Mike Pompeo is one of those guys who has positioned himself as the most qualified presidential candidate maybe in history, and certainly since George H.W. Bush. He's got a better resume than George H.W. Bush had. He knows this government from one end of it to the other. And I don't believe there's a stronger American. So, am I going to vote for Donald Trump? Maybe. I want to see what Donald Trump talks about. I want to see what Ron DeSantis talks about. I want to see what Mike Pompeo talks about. And I want to see who else shows up. I'm not a rubber stamp for Donald Trump, but I got to tell you something. That guy's an American. I believe in a government that takes care of America first, as opposed to everybody else. I believe the government of the United States should work for the benefit of the people of the United States. And let's face it, having gasoline at $1.82 after a decade of not having it at $1.82, that was nice. It was nice to be able to fill up your car for a reasonable amount of money. That really was. Okay? Just saying. Who else is on this chat room? Trump will probably break a record turnout in Youngstown, Ohio this weekend. The crowds are getting bigger and bigger and bigger at these rallies. I don't think he's had a crowd where there were less than 10 or 15, 20,000 people. I just don't think so. I mean, this guy draws a crowd. That is amazing to me. That is amazing. Let's see, I've been thinking about that question for a while, although I'd love Trump to be able to say all he would like to call everybody out. I'm still considering. What do I think of Rubio? I think that Marco Rubio, good guy. I believe he's an excellent senator. I believe that he's a creature of politics. I believe that he is a creature of politics like Ron DeSantis is. I think that Mike Pompeo, although he's been in the political game for a very, very long time, is more distanced from it. I mean, if I had to stick to my guns and say we don't need another politician, and say, for example, Donald Trump was out of the picture, I might just say, that Mike Pompeo would be the guy because he is the least political of the others. So Marco Rubio, young, and a good sharp mind, but I don't know that he's a president. I don't know. Let's see what else. Okay. So that's where we stand. And and there's somebody that's saying hold on a second. Let's get through. Who is this? Mike says, let's get through the next election first. That's going to do a lot. We're going to get a lot of information out of the next election. We truly are. The process of that involves a Republican Party that looks like it's willing to commit suicide. It looks like to me, the Republican Party is willing to throw the election in an effort to avoid responsibility. And I've seen them do it before. That's why I'm not a Republican. I can see the wisdom in some of that. Some of it I can see the wisdom in. But what I can't see any longer, and maybe it's just because I'm older now, and maybe it's because I've had to endure this for so long, I am finished with the exploitation of an issue in favor of a solution to that issue. I want solutions from this government. I don't want the constant cogitation. I don't want the constant manipulation. I don't want the mess that goes along with the political issue du jour. I want a solution. And because politics loves a problem but hates a solution, I'm not sure that politicians can make that happen. Which is why, for people that have actually been on this broadcast for any length of time, that actually pay any attention to it, you've heard me talk about the fact that we must stop electing politicians and start electing our neighbors. We need to take away every possible opportunity for a politician to decide who else is going to be in power. In other words, I would not allow politicians to determine who the next group of federal judges would be. And the reason I wouldn't do that is because that's how we got this divided, fragmented political federal judicial system, all the way through the Supreme Court of the United States. The idea, like, for example, Elena Kagan was talking about how she was really worried about a political judiciary because she thought it damaged the legitimacy of the court. Her credibility is absolutely destroyed on that particular issue because she was the Solicitor General during the years of the Protection of Marriage Act. She was the Solicitor General, and then when she was elected, or excuse me, when she was appointed to the Supreme Court, she sat in on the case. She should have recused herself, but she didn't. That's political. And so that's our problem here. What we need more than anything is we need the people of the United States making decisions of that nature instead of politicians making decisions of that nature. So the federal judiciary, yes. Yeah. Yeah, we need to do something along that line. So when I start talking about these United States and I start talking about these elections, I'm talking about the people of the United States being called for a better purpose than just checking off the name of another politician. I'm asking for intellectual effort. I'm asking for the melding of intellectual pursuit and experience. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people to look at what is plainly in front of them, to set aside the willing to run with a herd and start looking at what's actually there instead of the latest shiny object over there to distract our attention from reality. You know, we dodged a major bullet. At least we're close to dodging it. It's still not dodged yet. But that rail strike would have nailed the United States economy to the wall because of all the energy. It has nothing to do with whether or not guys get days off so they can go see the doctor. It had to do with the fact that if those guys stopped hauling that freight, we don't have a cost-effective solution because diesel fuel is $5 a gallon. Why is it $5 a gallon? Because the President of the United States wants this country energy poor. Why? For political reasons. He wants to throw the United States into an economy that doesn't exist yet, which is insane. It's insane. And the stomping of anybody who disagrees, especially by the secret police of the United States at the direction of the Biden regime, should be enough for people to notice. That's some of that factual stuff that you have to look at and say, no, John David's not being partisan. He's being objective. Yeah. If you disagree, call 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. You are watching The Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. It's Fishing Shirt Friday on the Wells Report. Hi, my name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us. Good to have you here. Good to have you here. After this one's done, by the way, we get a weekend of rest. And frankly, your humble reporter sure could use some. Yeah, this has been a hard week. It's been a tough one. Lots of agonizing reappraisal. A couple of things did happen this week. First of all, people have appeared that have wanted to financially support the Wells Report, which is a humbling experience. You know, I've been able to work at a radio station or work for a radio company, a broadcast media company, and do my work and essentially provide that to you for free. And I've had a lot of success because you've always been there. You've always been there. No matter what I was doing. When I was a music DJ, you were there. When I started doing talk radio but wasn't doing the Wells Report, you were there. And when I decided that I was going to do the Wells Report and that was going to be a news broadcast and I wasn't qualified to do it because I'd never been a newsman before, you were still there. You grew with me through that entire process. And now radio has changed. There are a lot of things that people like me did that hurt an awful lot of leftist intention. And consequently, things changed in order to quell some of that. And so that's when you started hearing about angry old white guys, right? Well, arguably, I'm one of those guys, but I'm not angry. And I don't just spew doctrine. I don't spew orthodoxy of the Republican Party like so many others do. What I do is report the news. Do I tell you what I think about it? Sure. But it's not through a Republican lens. It's through a constitutional one. And I believe that anybody who still is an American of either political stripe still believes in the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights. I still believe that. And I always will. And that's where the basis of the politics, if there are politics on this broadcast, that's where they come from. And people have known it, and people have supported it. But this is the first time I've ever asked for people to support it directly, because there is no paycheck. I am not working for a media company. I cannot provide this radio broadcast free of charge. And it is exquisitely difficult for me to make that transition. Now, other news organizations do it. Wikipedia asks for money. The Guardian asks for money. There are a lot of people that ask for money that do this job. The Hill asks for some money. And doing what I do as a subscription service isn't outlandish. It's not the odd thing that people would think it would be. It's just out of my comfort zone. But there were people that stepped up, and I want to thank them. And I'll thank them more properly later. But right now, if you'd like to be one of those people to step up, by all means, please do. Go to patreon.com/The Wells Report, patreon.com/The Wells Report. And by the way, if you like the show but you think it's worthless, and I understand, you can do you can do things that are free. Like, for example, you can subscribe. If I get enough subscribers, maybe somebody might want to buy some advertising on this broadcast. That way I can stop asking you to fund it. So you can subscribe. You can hit like. You can share it with your friends. This is a grassroots news broadcast that happens every day, Monday through Friday, between 2 and 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. It'll be Central Daylight Time soon, I think, unless they pass that law that gets rid of daylight savings time. But that being said, it's a privilege to be working with you and working for you. And we got more of this broadcast on Friday afternoon coming up next. This is The Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. Fishing Shirt Friday. I love these shirts. Even though they don't do me any favors. That's the way it is. So, in 1975, something amazing happened in these United States. A late-night live television show featuring sketch comedy and other things hit the air for the first time. It was called Saturday Night, NBC's Saturday Night. It would end up being called Saturday Night Live. And there have been many incredibly talented and funny people that have been part of Saturday Night Live. Truly. The show was created by Lorne Michaels and Dick Ebersol. George Carlin was the first host, October 11th, 1975. They went out and they found all kinds of truly amazing comedic minds. They went to Chicago's Second City. They went into Canada. They went just about everywhere to find these guys, these people, these human beings, and they were all very, very funny. And they did amazing things. In 1980, Lorne Michaels, who was the guy who basically worked it out with Dick Ebersol, in 1980, he left the show. By the way, Lorne Michaels remains the executive producer or showrunner. But he left to do something else. He was replaced by Gene Dumanian, who was then replaced with Ebersol a year later because of terrible ratings. The show created an awful lot of very good things. Like, for example, the Blues Brothers, Wayne's World, but that's Blues Brothers 1980, Wayne's World 1992. What is the next really funny group of films and so on coming out of Saturday Night Live since then? Not many. They've won 87 Primetime Emmy Awards, 6 Writers Guild of America Awards, 2 Peabody Awards, inducted into the National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame, was ranked 10th in TV Guide's 50 Greatest Shows of All Time in 2007. It was listed as one of Time's 100 best TV shows of all time. As of 2018, the show had received 252 Primetime Emmy Award nominations, the most received by any program on television. But you've noticed that you don't see an awful lot of Primetime Emmys. You see nominations. Interesting. The live aspect of the show has resulted in several controversies, acts of censorship, mistakes, intentional acts of sabotage by performers as well as guests. But that's part of live television. That's okay. That truly is. As time went by, I stopped watching Saturday Night Live because it stopped being funny. It did. And then there for a very, very long time, I would go back every now and then and I would make it a point to watch a few weeks of Saturday Night Live in a row to see if they had gotten any better. And the answer is no. We know that the show isn't funny because we know the names Chevy Chase, John Belushi. We know Dennis Miller. We know all those names. Steve Martin. Martin Short. They go on and on and on until like the last 20 years or so. And suddenly we just don't have that much. We don't know those names. There was somebody that was on television doing the Emmy Awards I'd never heard of. Evidently, he'd been a cast member of Saturday Night Live. And you're saying to yourself, this is a news show, why are we talking about Saturday Night Live? Well, because this is part of the news. Well, Why is Saturday Night Live in the news? Well, they've essentially fired the entire cast. They lost 7 cast members and hired 4 more. And when you start talking about a show that's been on the air almost as long as I've been on the air, that's newsworthy. This is an important show. This is a cultural part of America here. This is, at least in its finest form, a very humorous, funny, amusing look at what is going on in the United States among all kinds of realms. And that's at least what it started out being. And then it became basically just a bunch of entitled people who really think they're funny, proving that they're really not. And how that continues, I don't know, mainly because nobody else can compete with Saturday Night Live, at least at this point. As the show's most recent season ended, SNL said goodbye to Pete Davidson, Kate McKinnon, Kyle Mooney, Heidi Bryant, Alex Moffat. Oh, wait, hold on. Earlier this month, it was revealed in September that Alex Moffat, Melissa Villaseñor, Aristotle Anthari were also not asked to return. 7 gone. There are new players, however. There are new players that are going to be part of it. And let's figure out who those people are. Marcelo Hernandez, born in Miami. He's a stand-up guy. He was among the On the Brink stand-ups named a Just for Laughs new face of comedy in July. Molly Kearney, the Cleveland native, has appeared in Amazon Prime's A League of Their Own and Disney Plus revivals of The Mighty Ducks. Kearney was also featured in Comedy Central's 2019 Up Next showcase. Michael Longfellow. You might have seen this Phoenix native on Netflix introducing or NBC's Bring Up the Funny, which aired in 2019. In 2017, Longfellow was also named one of the comics to watch at the New York Comedy Festival. And then there's Devin Walker. Devin Walker, who hails from Austin, Texas. I like him already. Has racked up writing credits for Netflix animated comedy Big Mouth and Freeform's Everything's Trash, starring Phoebe Robinson. Walker was a part of Comedy Central's Up Next showcase in 2017. So when you start talking about these new people that are coming, what will be their contribution to this iconic comedy series? What I hope their contribution is going to be is actual comedy, something funny. What would that be? Why did Saturday Night degenerate into people that are just too hip for the room? Which is a comment that you hear when people are quote far funnier than people can understand. Well, the thing about it is that it was built that way. It followed what happened in a lot of the New York art scene. And that is hubris. Hubris. You see, these people, they believe that if you don't laugh at what they're doing, it's because there's something wrong with you. The humility required to perform successfully for people is rare enough. But if you forget who you actually work for, you're doomed. You're absolutely doomed. Arguably, there were an awful lot of people that liked me telling jokes in wacky morning radio. I had a lot of fun with the witty exchanges between the people that I talked to when I was doing the John David Wells Show, which was not the Wells Report. Did I lose an awful lot of listeners when I became the host of another show? I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe. A lot of those people made that transition with me, but then again, it was 9/11. We couldn't waste anybody's time. Now it's 2022. The nation is bitterly divided politically. And that's for political effect. And that's another reason why Saturday Night Live isn't funny. Is because in the New York art scene, very, very liberal, very, very powerful. In the New York art scene, if you say something that would make fun of Joe Biden, for example, well, you'd get run out of town on a rail. So nobody makes fun of Joe Biden. Why not? Look, Joe Biden's the president of the United States. He has foibles just like everybody else. There was a piece of videotape that showed Gerald R. Ford a long time ago slipping on a ski slope. And what happened to President Gerald R. Ford was suddenly he was the clumsiest guy in the world. And it was very funny. It truly was. It was. George H.W. Bush was kind of nerdy. Sort of talk like this. Wouldn't be prudent. And that was made fun of a lot. And there were an awful lot of people that made unfunny comments about Donald Trump, although Alex Baldwin's dead-on impression of Donald Trump, gosh, if he had just had some decent material, we'd still be talking about that. But I watched him. His characterization was beautiful. But his material was pedestrian. There wasn't anything funny in it. And there could be. Gosh, you can have so much fun with Donald Trump and his persona. You can. But you got to care about that person enough. You know, gentle ribbing is very funny. Harsh criticism disguised as humor is cruel. And I've also noticed that Saturday Night Live has no problem whatsoever taking on Republican presidents, but won't take on Democrat ones. And that's part of the problem. If I was the showrunner for Saturday Night Live, I would say, okay, what are the biggest things that Americans deal with every day? Forget politics. What are the biggest things that people deal with every day? Well, food prices are high. Well, what can we do to poke fun at high food prices? Well, alternative foods. Like, for example, you could have this commercial for inorganic food. You know, bourbon on the rocks with real rocks. You know, you could talk about how climate change, that's a big thing, whether you believe in it or not. What I'd love to do is a bit that I've always wanted to see done was people realizing that they were breathing out carbon dioxide. They didn't want to contribute to carbon dioxide, so they wouldn't breathe out. They just go. They'd never breathe out because it would be carbon dioxide. It'd be a sin against the climate, and so on and so forth. You make fun of those people because they're so wrapped up in it, they're afraid to even do something basic like breathing because they contribute to a carbon footprint. Well, okay, so if you never exhaled, where would all that air go? And that's the junior high aspect of my humor. Is that funny? I don't know. Do you think it's funny? I think it is. But I would do something along that line. Something that lovingly parodied, satirized, had fun with instead of made fun of. That kind of comedy does exist. And it's very, very good. And if you don't believe me, all you got to do is go to a Jeff Dunham comedy concert. Jeff Dunham is magnificent. There are a lot of people that do really great humor, but it's stuff that you actually can deal with. One of the most successful characters that Jeff Dunham ever had, is Ahmed the Dead Terrorist. He's making fun of suicide bombers. And you know, the interesting thing about that is that what he says and what Ahmed says as a character from Jeff Dunham is just plain side-splittingly funny. So side-splittingly funny that when Jeff Dunham went to the Middle East while he had to change the name of Ahmed, people were still laughing at the material. You see, humor can be funny if it's funny. It can be hurtful if it's hurtful. Saturday Night Live has lost its way and has lost its way for a long time. Will these cast members make a difference? I certainly hope so. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. While we're talking about television comedy, let's talk a little bit about late night talk shows. I've told the story about my mother allowing me to stay up to watch The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. I was in high school when it happened. I mean, I was like a junior in high school, but I was able to stay up to watch Johnny Carson because my mother, she knew what I was going to be doing for a living long before I did. She knew I'd be doing something along this line. And she was the chief defender of what I did for a living, even though there were an awful lot of people asking me when was I going to stop screwing off and get to work and do something substantial. Well, I dare say that happened on September 11th, 2001. And that's when I started doing something substantial. Although I was doing really, really well, I remember an exquisitely difficult conversation that I was a part of, mainly as a spectator, when Dad, who was a ground controller for the space shuttle project, was giving me garbage about when am I going to do something that's he was rather he was rather blunt with his assessments. It had something to do with self-pleasure. When was I going to stop self-pleasuring myself and actually do something worthwhile? Because he was an artist too. His love letters to my mother are Ernest Hemingway good. They are just breathtaking. But he walked away from that because he wanted to raise and educate his children. He wanted to be the head of a family, and he did it. But he set aside all that stuff. He played piano. You know, he was truly an artist. Anyway, we were having this conversation. And Dad said something about how I needed to start doing something substantial. And Mother's, in her very sweet and sly way, said, "Have you noticed that he's making more money than you, John?" My dad was John Howard Wells. I'm John David Wells. And I immediately tried to escape the room. And because I was stunned that she would say it, because I never even thought it was possible, that I would make more money than a ground controller of a space shuttle project, playing records on the radio and doing other things. I did a lot of comedy, but you know, I said, "I can't believe that I make more money than Dad. Look at what Dad does for a living." And she said, "Stop. Entertaining people is valuable. Making people feel better, happier, giving them an opportunity to share something poignant and actually enjoy something, that's valuable. What you do is important." And that reminded me of what Johnny Carson, who was not the original host of The Tonight Show, that was Jack Parr. Jack Parr was a conversationalist. Comedy just happened because he was a good-humored guy. Johnny Carson, on the other hand, was a guy who was a jack of all trades. He was a superb conversationalist. He was an excellent interview guy, and he was a very good stand-up comedian. And Johnny Carson had all kinds of rules for that show, and his success endured because of them. And I'd like to see some of those rules in Saturday Night Live and some of these other night shows. One of them is, in hard times, tell silly jokes. In good times, tell serious jokes. But when times are tough, using a supposed comedy show to stomp on politicians that you disagree with isn't funny. You know, I'd like to see Saturday Night Live succeed again, but they're going to have to do it by actually deciding to be funny and actually stop worrying about whose feelings you're going to hurt or whether you're politically correct with a bit. Have some fun with Joe Biden. Okay? Joe Biden let me give you an example of how you could do it without hurting anybody's feelings. Joe Biden took his jacket off. He was doing that celebration of the Inflation Reduction Act. He took his jacket off, he put it on the stage, and he started walking all over it. I mean, that was really funny. What else would he walk all over in his house, in the residence? What else would he walk on? And you could toss somebody like you could toss a political enemy in there that he would be walking on. That would be kind of a little funny thing. But think about Joe Biden as somebody who, if you cared about him, you could tease him a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. People do that with me all the time. I think it's some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard. It's really, truly fantastic. But, like Stephen Colbert, that show's built around his ego. James Corden on the Late Late Show, really funny. Have you seen Car Karaoke? And the guy that really has a chance to break through is Jimmy Fallon. That guy is amazingly talented. But he keeps trying to play politics. And like I keep saying, politics ruins or poisons everything it touches, even comedy. Let's hope it stops soon. Let's hope comedy decides to stop it. I hope you've enjoyed this broadcast. See you next week for another set of this show, The Wells Report. Until then, God bless you. Have a great weekend, wonderful people. I truly love all of you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me get to the chat room and see what we can do at the end of this. Let's see. Jane Curtin did a bit about a reporter interviewing two people, one that lived 5 seconds in the past and one that lived 5 seconds in the future. That was hilarious. That was hilarious. You know, God bless all y'all. Take good care. Right? Seriously. You know, try to get through the weekend without being offended by anything. See if that works. See if you can just see the humor in something or be gracious because of just letting somebody off the hook that may have given you cause for offense. Right? Yeah, you take good care. Until Monday.